This is a typical American neighborhood. Do you know why? Because in most US cities, it is made illegal to build anything else. And that is hurting millions of people, and I would be brave enough to call it evil. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. We know what the big issues are, right? Living standards, housing, environment, health, crime, poverty. City design? Wait, what? Why is city design here? Yes, I know it doesn't sound important, but hear me out. Let's look at this list. How we build our cities will impact everything here, for better or worse. Nowhere is this more apparent than the US. A few simple rules are making American cities a lot worse for the people that live there. And that can be changed easily, but there is a group of people willing to fight against it. So let's talk about the main villain of US cities, zoning. Zoning is the way cities regulate what can be built where. It is used all over the world, and it makes a lot of sense. You shouldn't be allowed to put a chemical plant next to people's houses. But in most of the US, zoning goes from hero to villain. This is an R1 zone. On 75% of all city land in the US, you can only build a single family home. In some places, the number is high as 96%. No shops, no multifamily homes, God forbid any small buildings. In order for me to explain why I think this is hurting millions of people, let's look at the alternatives and compare. The best option, in my opinion, is mixed zoning. It allows for the construction of all sorts of things: houses, smaller residential buildings, homes for multiple families. But that's only half of it. The other half is allowing commercial buildings. This means that streets can have restaurants, small shops, hairstylers, and cafes. Right now, this is not possible. Not only because it's literally illegal to open a restaurant on most city land, but even if it was, it would not work economically. Many small businesses function because they are close to their customers. Imagine you open a restaurant in a single family neighborhood. You have a few dozen people in walking distance. In a mixed neighborhood, you have some single family homes, but also a building or two and some multiple family homes. Meaning that instead of a few dozen, you have a few hundred people 5 minutes away from your restaurant or shop. This is the same reason public transportation cannot function right now. If only 30 people live near a bus stop, it doesn't make much sense to have a bus stop in the first place. And keep in mind that these neighborhoods do not ban single family homes. People will still build them and live there. But we are just allowing for the construction of other things. You might not know why I care about this, but we can talk about the problems and I think you'll understand. The current system has many issues. Single family homes house a lot less people than basically any other form of housing. It's a simple supply and demand problem. Demand is the same because people want a home, if you can believe it. But the supply is artificially lowered by zoning rules. And it doesn't even stop there. Zoning often requires you to leave a certain amount of space between houses, between your house and the street, in your backyard, and so on. It's very strict. All of this further restricts the supply and drives prices even more. This was historically used to keep poor people out of neighborhoods. This may not be the intention now, but the result is the same. People that cannot afford these stupid houses are looking for alternatives like apartments. But remember, the average US city leaves only 25% of space for everything else that is not a single family home. Everything else. And because of that, all of those things are competing for very limited space. So of course it's expensive. It's really awful and cruel. You create the rules that not only make it impossible for poor people to get into your neighborhood, but those same rules also make it impossible for them to afford a home anywhere else. I told you this is evil. As the price of a home has gone up, it's increasingly impossible for many young people to afford a home and start their own families. So it's clear how it's making both poverty and housing affordability a lot worse. These rules are bad for you even if you can afford to buy a house, because now you will be paying a lot more. For decades, you will pay a higher mortgage because of zoning rules. But that's not the only way it's making life more expensive. Since everything is spread out, the only way to get around is by car. You need to get to work, car. Groceries, car. Take your kids to school, car. Spend time with friends, car. And the family needs two cars to function, because without them, it's like being on an island in the middle of the ocean, unable to move. In a mixed-use neighborhood, or what most of the world calls normal neighborhoods, you can walk to most things. You can buy things at a local store a few minutes away, and your kids can go to school by themselves. Good public transportation allows you to get places faster and save money, since it's cheaper than paying for gas and you don't have to worry about parking. If you still want or need a car, you can get one, but most families won't need to, and you will be using it less. Plus, since most people will be walking or taking the bus, there will be less traffic for the people that really want to drive. Why am I mentioning this? Well, owning and operating a car every day is really expensive. You pay for gas, repairs, and car payments. This adds up on average over $10,000 a year per car. That's right, per car. I think you can see why all of this is contributing to a much higher cost of living. Americans have very high salaries on average. Most of the US should have a fantastic standard of living, but that's not the case. Particularly because stuff like this, a completely unnecessary thing that forces people to spend a large part of their paycheck every month for decades. And it doesn't have to be like that. This is a system that is set up in such a way. And then we can get to the health benefits. Look, in an ideal world, we would all be exercising every day, going to the gym and running. But that's not the world we live in. Walking is the only form of exercise for 80% of the population. And when you are forced to use your car to get anywhere, even walking is rare. This type of zoning is erasing the only kind of exercise most people would have. This is sad, but Americans live significantly shorter lives than people from other developed countries. And this is one of the reasons why. See, this is why city design is important. Plus, it has impacts on stress. Having to drive your kids everywhere is not good for the parents or the kids. So we can add health to that list as well. All of that, and I've only covered a part of the issue with this kind of zoning. I could talk about the environment, city budgets, loneliness, or crime. I might leave that for another video. I want to answer a question that you might have. If these neighborhoods are so bad, why do these rules exist? Since it's in the US, you might think that it's a bunch of rich corporations lobbying the federal government. No, not this time. It's a bunch of rich old people lobbying the local government. Old people that have bought their houses decades ago and profit off of this system. By restricting the supply, their houses are worth even more. So they're doing everything they can to keep R1 housing in place. Now, they will always use ridiculous arguments like, it's about preserving the neighborhood, whatever that means. But that's not the real reason. It also has the added benefit of keeping poor people out of their neighborhoods. So yes, millions of people will never own a home. It is making life more expensive for everyone. It is hurting people both mentally and physically. And there's even the stuff I haven't talked about, like the environment, crime, and brain-corrupting cities. All of that so that when you're 75, you will own a house that is worth more money. And then you will die in 77 because you haven't walked in decades. So what can be done? Well, people could fight it on the local level. There has been success, but it's not easy. Your opponents are old, rich people with money, connections, and a lot of free time. Another solution would be for states or even the federal government to restrict how R1 zoning can be used. You might think that after all that, I hate cars and single family homes and the American way of life. Well, look, I honestly don't. This is about having the freedom to choose what kind of home you want, to choose whether you want to drive a car, walk, or take the bus. In fact, I would say that having some guy from the local government tell you what kind of house you can build and how much away from the street it can be on your land is the most un-American thing I can think of, whatever that means. Thanks for watching. If you take anything away from this video, I hope it will be that city design matters. It matters so much. And we can all think about how we can make our cities better to live. If you enjoyed the video, one awesome thing you can do is to subscribe. It's a small channel, so every bit helps. And here are 2 other videos. The YouTube algorithm says you will like them, and I don't know, I hope the algorithm's right. And have a great day.